Thank you for coming to my panel. My name is Akira Negi, and I will be talking about traveling to Japan. Just before I start, one skill that I do not possess is creating beautiful slides and beautiful presentations using PowerPoint. That is not one of my skills. If it looks outdated, if it looks like, God, my kid can do a better job, you're probably right. It's not one of my talents. I will hopefully try to make up for it in other ways, and I will hopefully have some time at the end to answer your questions, because I'm sure you all have some questions that relates to travel to Japan. So let's see here. There it is. So let's at least put it in the presentation format. All right. No, that's not what I meant to do. All right. Well, I guess that works. All right. So I saw some of you this morning in a different panel, and for those of you who actually came back, I didn't realize I had fans, so thank you. Just a little bit about me. My professional life is being a travel agent, and I don't just book travel to Japan, but I obviously do some of it because I am Japanese, and I speak Japanese. And as such, some of you found out earlier this morning that I've been working as an interpreter for some events, some of it in local area, some of it not so local. My real life job is taking care of people who are doing business trips, so like the boring side of the travel. I've been with the same company for 13 years and about 25 years in industry at this point. One particular item that I will mention is that one type of client that I have is the events and conventions, and MAGFest is one of them. So I appreciate MAGFest for all the business they've given me over the years. I've done this panel a number of times, and people have thought about going to Japan. You like anime, you like games, you like other things about Japan, food, what have you. So the first thing I wanted to share with you is more of the macro perspective of the travel. Why are people traveling these days? And this obviously doesn't all have to do with Japan. Travel back in the day, and this is probably predating many of you being born, was all about going on a package tour, visiting the most famous sites in each country, maybe spending 3 days each and going to 3 different places and then coming home and sharing all the pictures with your family. Well, I think those days are basically over. There's plenty of value in going to places that are popular. I'm never going to deny people from doing that. But these days it's all about experience. It's all about, what is it that I'm traveling and doing that I can't do sitting at home? And if it's seeing a picture, then in many cases you can just sit at home and look at beautiful pictures somebody else is taken on your behalf, somewhere abroad. And why is it that you want to put yourself there and see that same thing in real person? Sometimes, many times there's a point to it, but sometimes there's not. So it's all about what it is that you want to get out of what it is that you want to get out of the travel, what do you want to experience. And there's no wrong answer. That's the biggest trend. And people want to go longer and farther because they have the power to work from home or work remotely in a lot of cases. Leisure is the key word in our industry these days, where you have a business trip to a destination. It's like, I'm just going to take 3 extra days to visit that city. There was a time that such thing was frowned upon. I don't think that's true anymore. And people also tend to want to spend more money to get more luxury, and that also plays into the experience side of it. Just very quickly, I read the statistics that 85% of U.S. travelers plan to take the same number or more in 2024. 40% of travelers rate the vibe of the destination as important. There are 16% of people who say the cost of hotels determine the choice of the destination. I think it extrapolates to what is the cost to visit that destination. And some places are more expensive than the others, and well, some places are very affordable once you get there. People generally want to travel off the beaten path, and food is also another key word. So why are you traveling? And I'm not going to read through all these. You know, if you think about why you want to travel, what are the reasons maybe up there? And if you actually do read through all of these, I'll be the first to admit not every one of these is going to fit Japan. If you want to do a hardcore trip off the track for weeks, then yeah, maybe you're looking at the wrong continent. So food, shopping, sightseeing, and are there any other specifically Japan trends? So Japan in a nutshell, population is approximately 123 million. And the size, it's written there, it's about the size of California. The yen exchange rate, I could be slightly outdated on this one because I did this part of the slide about 10 days ago. But in a nutshell, you're squeezing about a third of the population of the U.S. into a land size of the California. So it's a very congested city, congested country. And Tokyo in particular, the metro area of Tokyo is said to have like 30 million people. Let's see. Actually, you know what? Let's do it this way. Let's pause here, because the reason I was testing the video earlier was that there is a video that I think is more fitting for this group, and no, it's not this ad. So I think it's this one. Let's go ahead and rewind this and actually play, because I think you Is it gone now? All right, hang on. Thank you. I will rewind. That's another area of my weakness. So anyway, there's a quiz on it later about all the places that were in there. Let's see how far. I think it was this one. All right, let's see if I can do this right. Okay, there we go. All right. I might pass high school. So anyway, somebody asked earlier in the earlier panel, like, why are the airfares so expensive? So here's the slides, and I'm noticing that this is not the slide that I expected to show you. Let's see. I think, okay, this slide has definitely gotten mixed in there from back in 2017 or so. This is, so I apologize for that. What I meant to say here was that currently the airfare is expensive, and the reason is that the supply is limited for flights to Japan. Japan is okay, but the flights to other parts of Asia are very limited right now. So a lot of passengers are connecting in Tokyo to get to other points in Asia, especially China. And that puts a real stress on the demand and the flights to Japan. And also fuel is not exactly cheap right now, so that adds another burden. And of course the inflation. And airlines are in the recovery mode. They obviously lost a whole ton of money during COVID. So they're all in the recovery mode of like, how can we make up for those losses? And if you take any of those reasons that you think the fare is gonna go lower, well, no. And also there's a lot of people who want to travel because of the pent-up demand during COVID. In Japan in particular, have been experiencing a lot of travelers. I think, let me see if I can do this. I saw the number this morning. I think it said that 2023 visitors were 25 million for the year. And that's almost at a pre-COVID level. And that's with the country not really having opened up in full until the April of this, no, actually the May of this year. So you can expect that number to go even higher. There's also a significant reduction in the Chinese tourists visiting Japan at the moment. And that's probably going to go up a bit. So we're probably going to be seeing a lot of people going to Japan. So fares are higher. But not everything is bad news. Anybody in here from New York area? Okay, a couple people. So one of the big news in the industry is that Japan Airlines is putting in a new aircraft in New York area, and it's nice. It's their 350-1000 variety, and it's nice. So if you think about going to Japan, you might want to look and see if that meets your needs. And I'm kind of excited to try it at some point because it looks pretty cool. All right, enough of that. So you fly to Japan and you get to the airport. And how many of you have been to Japan? Okay. How many of you have had to land in Narita Airport? Okay. And so about half of the people, the other half I assume have had to go to Haneda Airport. Those of you who had to go to Narita, you know how far out that is. There's no nice way of saying about it. It takes a long time to get to central Tokyo. There's been a trend since before the COVID that the flights are now generally going into Haneda instead of Narita, and it's significantly closer. It accepts Japan Rail Pass among other things, and the number of low-cost carriers are now available, especially in Narita as well, which reduces the cost of travel a lot. Zip Air, I don't know if anybody's heard of it. If anybody's looking for just any cheap way to get to Japan, that's a good airline to look into out of West Coast. It's a Japan Airlines subsidiary, so you don't have to worry too much about the quality. Anyway, getting to Japan has gotten easier. Going to actually, let's see, check something here, because I just want to make sure I didn't open up the wrong file. I think it's okay. All right. So once you get to Japan, where are you going to be in Tokyo? Is it Ginza area, Roppongi area, Shibuya area, Shinjuku area? And I'm showing you these pictures because these are probably the neighborhoods that you've heard of. Based on the requests that I get, these are the neighborhoods that I hear the most about. Like, can you put me in this area? I'm sure everybody has their likes, so if you want to be in that area, I'm not going to argue with you. But here are some thoughts. Demands are high. You just heard about the number of people visiting Japan, especially Kyoto and Tokyo, especially during peak season. You want to book early. Like I was looking at the late March hotel rates in Tokyo, and honestly, it looks to be a significant increase, like way more than the inflation rate over last year. If you look at Kyoto during the cherry blossom season or the full foliage season, a lot of times you can't even get a hotel. I have business travelers in Japan, for friends of mine, who complain to me that they need to go to Kyoto for business and they can't get a hotel. It's really gotten that bad. So you want to book early if you do that. Luxury hotels are easier to get. If you want to spend a lot of money and get nice hotels, those are relatively easy. Adjust your expectation when you want to travel to parts of the world, including Japan, and honestly most parts of the world. Rooms are going to be smaller. I'm sure you're used to the US room size. That plane just doesn't exist in Japan unless you pay a lot. One conversation I have a lot with the people who come to me is that sometimes it's easier to book 2 rooms for 2 people than 1 room for 4 people. More space, and it's a lot cheaper. So you just want to make sure you have the right expectation. You want to be convenient to transport. You want to be convenient to the airport. You're in Tokyo. You're never going to be close to everything. So you have to be close to the transport, and you want to be paying some attention to what line you're on. And being near a major station is great, but also keeping in mind that in a big station, it takes a long time to get to the right place in that station. I've never seen it myself, but I've heard that there's a game out there about exiting the Shinjuku Station dungeon. So anyway, you get the idea. Yeah, and also there's a traditional inns and such, but more on that later. And it didn't make it onto this, but those of you who love Airbnbs, you can try it in Japan. You may find something, but because of how the laws are structured, availability is going to be limited. So just keep that in mind. What do you do in Tokyo? One thing that I've recommended a lot is to start with a fish market. It's a unique experience. And this picture, by the way, is from the old market and not the new one. Fish market, by the nature of it, starts going about 5 in the morning, and it's a great thing to do when you can't sleep because of the jet lag. It's if you want to go, that might be a good time to go. So anyway, so other things, you might see Tokyo Tower, you might see Imperial Palace. You might visit the Sensoji Shrine Temple in Asakusa. The Tokyo Skytree, 634 meters, the tallest tower in Japan. Harajuku, and by the way, I'm sure some of you have heard of Harajuku. There's no hotels there, so don't try to stay there. People who are who have anime interests, Nakano Ikebukuro seem to be popular areas. So these are all about seeing things. What about things on the experience side? Anybody heard of Team Lab? Okay, some of you. So it's the forerunner of interactive digital art, and I have pictures, but pictures really don't do any justice. It's a beautiful digital picture, and then you walk in, and basically the art interacts with you, and it's a very very surreal, very mesmerizing experience. They have a relatively small exhibit in Tokyo right now. On February 9th, they're supposed to open a permanent exhibit in Asabudai Hills in Tokyo, and everybody's looking forward to that. Just want to give you a taste of what it's like. They had a different exhibit back in 2020, and this is a picture from when I was at the cafe at Team Lab. And you can't quite tell, but the bulb on the corner is the matcha ice cream, and there's a ball of tea on the lower left corner. And let's see if I can get this to cooperate with me and play this video. Anyway, so that's just a 30-second experience of what you might see once you're over there. Team Lab is always coming up with something new, so this exact experience may not be the thing when you're there, but you get the idea. Even at a cafe, you order things and you're not just eating and drinking. They give you an experience out of it. And there really is no way to experience it in real unless you're there in person. Let's see. Okay, so here's another one that you might see. I don't know if anybody's been to Odaiba to see the Gundam. For those of you who was there before 2017, it was a different Gundam. And I was there last year in October and forgot to take a picture, so I had a friend of mine message me the picture. This is what it looks like now. And several times a day it puts on a show, and parts of the Gundam moves from what I understand. And anyway, it's pretty cool. Another one that I'm sure everybody's heard of is Akihabara. And this is a picture of Akihabara. It looks slightly different now, but there are arcades there, and there are shops there. There are maid cafes. Maid cafes, by the way, if you do go, come in all varieties and all qualities. Try to look up in advance which ones are actually good. Generally speaking, if they're sending multiple people into the streets to lure you to come in, they're probably not the top-rated one. So anyway, so one thing you probably realize already is that these are different parts of Tokyo, and you're going to be moving around Tokyo a lot. You're going to be on transport a lot, and the way most people use the local transport in Tokyo is with a card called Suica or Pasmo, and who's had experience of using it? Okay, a few people. This was a game changer when it came out, because before this card came out, what the guidebook said for U.S. visitors or English speakers to do once they're in Japan is that it's impossible to figure out how much a train costs. So buy the cheapest ticket, and when you exit the station, try to go up to the attendant and pay the rest of the fare. And that's pretty ridiculous. Suica and Pasmo is a prepaid card, but you pay like $10, $20 equivalent at a time. So, and it automatically deducts the right amount each time you take the ride. It really was a game changer. Now, I will say this, because of the chip shortage, they have temporarily suspended the sale of the cards. But the tourist version is available at the airport. So if any of you go in the next few months, try to keep that in mind, that you want to get that at the airport. Or better yet, there is a cell phone app for it, and as I understand, there is an Android version and there is an iPhone version. Be warned that some of the Android phones are not equipped to be able to deal with this. My understanding is that all of the iPhones that are currently in circulation have the ability. And a couple of my friends tested recently, and it seems like most US credit cards are compatible with it now. I don't have the first-hand experience, but that's something you can do. Uber equivalent is illegal in Japan. And those are, I am fully aware that you can actually try to book them depending on who the vendors are, but those are strictly illegal in Japan at this time. And the taxis are probably just as useful for the limited amount that you're going to be using, especially in Tokyo, because the transit system is pretty good. Another game changer in the last few years is that Google Map has most of the transit lines in Tokyo loaded. So if you just look things up in Google with a transit option, it will tell you how to get there. And it's not bad. And avoid morning rush hour. I'm sure everybody's seen one picture or the other about somebody pushing a butt into the train. That's real. Avoid doing that in a rush hour, and please try not to take your luggage with you. So anyway, right. So if you want to go to Kyoto, there's Shinkansen, the world famous bullet train. Tokyo to Osaka line opened in 1964 in time for the Tokyo Olympics. Tokyo Olympics started on October 10th. The line from Tokyo to Osaka opened October 1st. These days, train travel up to 200 miles an hour. And Tokyo to Osaka, it's up to 12 trains an hour, and the capacity of each one of those trains is 1,319 passengers. Then you can do the math of how many people it's equipped to carry. At peak travel times, that's actually full. So that's a lot of people going between Tokyo and Osaka, or points in between. It's 2.5 hours, which means that Tokyo to Osaka, if you ignore the fare, is almost commutable, which is crazy. The network will extend from Kanazawa to Fukui. If you don't know where it is, don't worry too much about it. It's on the Sea of Japan side, that extension is going to happen in March. And so getting around Japan is just generally getting easier. And for those of you who need a reservation, keep in mind that most reservations are not open until 1 month prior to the travel date. So like if you're trying March travel and you can't get a reservation, don't lose your mind, just wait till 1 month prior. Limited reservations services available from abroad. So if you can't figure it out, just bite the bullet and deal with it once you get to Japan. One question that I get a lot is Japan Rail Pass worth it? And the answer has changed very much in October when Japan Rail System decided that they're going to raise the price of the pass by 70%. And aside from the adjustment due to the sales tax, the price has not changed as long as I've known the JR Pass to be in existence. The earliest time that I've used it, as I remember, is like 1994. And the price really hasn't changed since then. So I can't really hold it against them that they changed the pricing. I just wish they wouldn't do all 70% all at once. But one of the limitation of the old pass was that the Nozomi trains on the Tokyo to Osaka path was not covered. Now you can at least pay extra to get on the Nozomi trains, and that's like 70% of the trains from Tokyo to Osaka. So if you're going to be taking a lot of long distance trains, and I don't just mean Tokyo to Osaka round trip, that's not enough. If you're going to be doing a lot more, it may be worth it, but you want to do the math very carefully. And if you're lucky, you might see this, and you might notice that there's no copyright on this. This is actually me taking this picture on my camera from the train through the train window. So, you know, for train picture, this is not bad. Kyoto is the 1,000-year capital of Japan, officially from the year 794 to 1868, so that's what, almost 1,100 years. So there's a lot of history. One of 2 cities in Japan that did not get bombed in World War II, other one being Nara. So there's a lot of old structures and such in Kyoto. Imperial Palace is there. This is not the most famous of the temples, but it just happens to be one of my favorite. This is actually within walking distance of Kyoto Station. One of the most popular is the Kiyomizu Temple. I'll go into it. So if you look at where the people are at this temple, it's on a very tall terrace-like structure. And the word for it in Japanese that we usually use is stage for this, because it kind of structures like a stage. So, and you notice that it's probably several stories off the ground. There's a saying in Japanese. Does anybody know what that saying is? So the saying in Japanese is "Kiyomizu no butai kara tobi oriru," which literally translates to jumping off the stage at the Kiyomizu temple. and you can figure out what what the result of that may be, and no, please don't do that. But in Japanese, it means that you're jumping in, and you really don't, you don't necessarily expect a good result, but you're doing it anyway. And you can kind of see where that's coming from. There's a shopping area by the Kiyomizu temple that's pretty popular. In central Kyoto, there's a Nishiki market area that is that's always been the market area in Kyoto, and it's still a central market area in Kyoto. This is one area that is in the news a lot recently, and the reason is over-tourism. Anybody familiar with the concept of over-tourism? Okay. What is over-tourism?
Too many tourists tour an area more than the people who live there would like.
Right, thank you. Yeah, that's exactly it. And there are places in the world where it's so popular that it just cannot handle the number of tourists coming in, and this is one of them. Kyoto as a whole has that problem, but Nishiki Market is particularly noticeable, because if you look at the picture, you see that the alleyways are very narrow. And that's one of the things that make Nishiki Market really cool. But unfortunately, it's not equipped to handle the number of people who want to try to visit. And the city of Kyoto as a whole has the problem. One of the issues is that the primary mode of transportation within the city of Kyoto is bus. And buses get affected by traffic. Buses are not that big, so it can only hold so many people. So, when you have so many tourists, the locals can't get on the bus, and they can't go to the hospital, they can't go shopping, what have you. And it's actually now a real problem. They actually have to stop selling the bus passes to tourists to discourage people from using the buses and try to direct them toward the trains. So it's actually a bit of a problem. This is not at all to say that you should not visit Kyoto, but if there are things you can do to minimize the impact in Kyoto, those will be welcomed by people who are there. Fushimi Inari, so I'm sure you've seen a picture of this. This gentleman who gave me the photo did a really good job, because I think this is a pre-COVID visit, and there's always people there. You can't take a picture this good unless you're there at like 5 in the morning. But it is pretty popular. So over tourism, I'm just going to go ahead and skip this because I said it already. But at the top it says it's a city of 1.4 million. Number of tourists is 40 to 50 million. And that's obviously going to be including domestic tourists. It's a very popular domestic destination as well. So, it's always been a tourist city. So residents of Kyoto are fully aware that tourists are going to be coming. They're just not ready for this number. Let's see. So I mentioned a little bit about the traditional Inn. It's called ryokan, and it's a worthwhile experience. And the key word here is experience. If you're just looking for a cheap place to stay, this is not it. On average stay for a full experience, you're probably looking at like $300 a person or so, and maybe upwards of that. You usually get breakfast and dinner with it. And you get a traditional inn with the Japanese, usually women, serving you for your needs, whether it be serving the meals or setting up the futon for sleeping, etc., etc. I do recommend it, but you have to go in with the understanding that you're experiencing the culture, and you're not there because you want to save money. Everybody who I've ever spent to a ryokan have come back and said that, yeah, it was a fun experience. So it is something that you do, but just go with the right expectation. Let's see. The one thing you want to know that this is the one place in Japan that you do tip. Tipping is not a part of the custom in Japan. You don't have to tip anything else at all in Japan. But the person who serves you in ryokan, you do tip that person. So this is the one exception. And one word of caution is that these are found in Kyoto as well as some in the hot spring resorts. All great experiences, but some of the ryokans in the remote areas are designed so that you spend all the time at that resort. And there's relatively little outside the resort, and even if there is, it may shut down at night. The best example I can give you is the Hakone area. I've been there a lot, but once 6 o'clock rolls around, pretty much everything is shut. So you just can't expect to do a whole lot at night, in particular when you go to these ryokans and in the remote parts of Japan. Kyoto City, that you're going to be fine, but you just want to go in with the right expectation. And the whole point of going to ryokan is food. Well, not all of it, but this is just an example of what an evening meal might look like. I once spent the night in I will call it a ryokan in northern tip of Japan, and I got a meal that was even better than this. And then I got a breakfast that I looked at and went, "You want me to finish this for breakfast?" Yeah. And it was a complete off-season. This is Hokkaido and remote part of town, so this is where cost was actually low. You know, I got all that, and I got the full experience, and it was like 5,000 yen a night. It was ridiculously cheap. But anyway, it is a good experience. And again, this is not about the pricing. Although I sounded like that, isn't about pricing. I'll give you one picture of an onsen. This is Dogo Onsen in Shikoku, one of the most famous and obviously historical building. And no, I did not take this picture personally. I downloaded it from an official site that they allowed me to download. When you do the bath experience, it is a communal experience, and no, you do not usually wear that towel. You're supposed to wash yourself before you go into the tub. You're supposed to cleanse yourself before you're soaking. So if anybody does go, please keep that in mind. So I'm just gonna run through these shopping photos real quickly. I'm sure everybody's heard of Daiso at this point. Daiso in Japan is all sorts of fun. You will see things that you'll be shocked that it's 400 yen. Here's a picture of a department store. Here's one. This is pretty old, but it hasn't really changed. So people line up the doors and escalators and key parts before they open the door in the morning. It's a particularly Japan thing to do. Here's a friend of mine getting excited about a konbini. One story that came out of Tokyo Olympics in 3 years ago was that I think it was a Canadian CNN reporter that went to Tokyo, and he got so much fun out of going to convenience store and buying things there. I think he wrote several articles about it, if I'm not wrong, at least one in any case, and it's fun, Or if you want to go all the way, go to the supermarket. The picture on the left is me being cheap. If you look at it, all of them have the stickers that were marked down for bargains. Anyway, Daiso, everybody knows about. Don Quixote, I don't know if anybody knows, but think Walmart, just cramped in lesser space with like things stacked up high. Book Off, gently used books at a discount. There's an Akihabara branch, but there's branches everywhere. If you do go, look up and see how big that branch is and what that branch specializes in. Toy stores in Japan, Kittyland is one of them. This is a store in Harajuku. There are other great toy stores. These are toy stores done right. You walk in and you just go back to being a kid because there's so much stuff and you can touch and play with all of it, and it's just a lot of fun, which is what toy stores should be like. I've seen other types of toy stores and I don't care for them, but these are still fun even as adults. And go to supermarkets. I do mean that seriously, and I don't just mean that for the bargain hunters who wait for that 7:30 p.m. to roll around with the stickers. The great thing about supermarkets is that with extremely few exceptions, they're never going to be tourist traps. They're always going to be for the locals. So you go in and everything there is things that the locals want. So if you find things that you're genuinely interested in, great, that's what the locals want, and you just found something that interests you and the locals like. So it's a great experience, and this is not just Japan. I try to go to supermarket, whatever the country I go to, and it's always a good experience. Yeah. And of course, Japan is all about food. You get 2 points if you can name every food in the pictures. I would just say one thing on the picture on the lower left-hand corner. I think this was 2022 in April that I went to Japan, and I was staying in Shinjuku area, and this is what I got for breakfast for 1,000 yen. At that time, 1,000 yen converted to about $7. Yeah, this was so huge. I don't think I ate lunch that day. So there's good food to be had. So food is good, even fast food. And no, I did not eat any of these. If any of you have, you can come up and share your experience with me. Yeah. So, anyway, did you know Tokyo has more Michelin stars than any other city in the world? Tokyo has 12 Michelin-starred restaurants, which is also most of any city in the world. There are Michelin-starred ramen restaurants. Most Michelin-starred restaurants, you're paying equivalent of $100 a person or more. And that's true even in Japan. These ramen restaurants are probably one of the biggest exceptions. A bowl of ramen is still going to be at the very most 20 and probably $10 or less in Japan. I went to one in Otsuka area of Tokyo, which is near Ikebukuro area. And there was a line even the weekday at 2 in the afternoon, but I waited maybe 20 minutes and got in, and it was an amazing ramen. So if anybody does go to Japan, that might be something you look into, again, for an experience. No tipping we talked about. Some higher end restaurants, and this is where in the category of like $100 a person and higher. Some of those restaurants insist on taking reservations only for people who have Japanese phone numbers. And if you don't, they usually ask you to go through the hotel concierge. So if you're staying in a hotel that have concierge, that's something you do. And I know not everybody speaks Japanese. I went through a whole spiel in the morning about that. Usually not a big deal. Many restaurants have English menus these days, but even before then, Japan often had wax food models showing what food looks like, when you order it. I will say that food models are almost always larger than the food you actually get. But those are great help when you don't know what the food is going to look like. Anyway, they're generally friendly people. So even if you don't speak Japanese, you're fine. You can get away with it, and you'll have a great time. And this is a picture of Narita Express train, just because. And so, what can you do? What can you wing, and what would you have to pre-book? Flights and hotels, obviously. At this point, I would never go to Japan without arranging all the lodging, unless you're there for a particularly long time. Ghibli, anything, you probably have to pre-book, and you wanna do that early. Those do fill up very quickly. A friend of mine went to a Kirby cafe, and the only way she was able to do it was get up at 5 in the morning and then hit their reservation system right as they opened. Some special exhibits, team lab experience, you probably want to pre-book. Like non-ramen Michelin-starred restaurants, if you're interested, you want to think about pre-booking. I forget the site, but I think there is a site that allows you to book some of these experiences online. Those usually charge a surcharge, but the alternative is that you're calling, them in Japan, and they ask you, what's your Japanese phone number, and do you speak Japanese? So paying a little bit extra is not really the end of the world. And concerts and events, chances are you have to pre-book. There's also a word that the Peace Memorial Park in Hiroshima is going to start pre-booking, because ever since the G7 summit, I forget what month it was, but that happened last year, they've been inundated with tourists, and they're thinking to go on a pre-booking system. Trains you can probably do once you're in Japan. If you're doing off-peak between Tokyo and Osaka, you can just show up at the station. It's 12 trains an hour. Chances are they'll find your seat. Bus to airport. If you're staying in a hotel that offers it, you wanna try to pre-book. A few days is usually enough. Bus from the airport is no big deal, because nobody really knows how long it takes to clear customs and immigration, so nobody pre-books those. And fine dining in some cases. Ramen, you're obviously not pre-booking. Local transport, of course, you're not pre-booking. Casual meals, restaurants, I think you've gotten to the point probably in the US that you're making reservations for many casual restaurants these days. Usually not required in Japan. You may have to wait a little bit, you may have to go to the next restaurant, but usually not a huge problem. Most museums you can just show up. Walking around the town, that never requires a reservation, and in fact I encourage it. You get a lot out of walking around and trying to explore cities, and most shopping is usually not a big deal. So I'm sure this is the page that everybody's waiting on. How much does it cost? $1,500 to $2,000 a person from East Coast of Japan. Round trip is about the budget these days. You can do it for less, and I've seen it for less. But that's getting lucky. So if you get those fares, great, but not everybody gets those, especially in the peak season. Premium economy and business class is going to be higher. So if you get great deals, great. If you can afford them, also great. Just know that these are how much it's going for. Frequent flyer miles, those are hard to come by for Japan, but sometimes they're available. If you can get them, great. But I will warn you about those of you with frequent flyer miles. Don't necessarily expect upgrades on US carriers. Those are really hard to come by these days. Food, hotel breakfast, US prices, but if you're staying at lower end hotels, it's probably going to be a lot less. Casual meals, like if you think about Japanese equivalent to the fast food, you can easily get a meal for $5. It's usually not a bad quality. Modest lunch, and same thing about modest breakfast, $10 to $15, pretty easy. Modest dinner is $20 to $40. Michelin starred, $200 to $400, but I mean, if it's Michelin 3-star and you're getting dinner for like $20, I'd be more worried. Lodging, budget hotels you can often do for $50 a person in a 2-person room. Keeping in mind the rooms are going to be small. Mid-range hotels, $100 to $150 a person. Higher end is $200 to $400. That's when you get into the upper 4 stars and 5-star hotels. Think about like Ritz-Carltons and Conrad. Those are never going to be cheap. Some of you may be lucky enough that you work for a company that have corporate agreements in Japan. Those are going to be significantly less if they allow you to use it for leisure travel. So you can try those. If you have points, great. If you happen to hit a bargain sale where it's a lot less, great. But these are about what they're going for. Hostels are available, and Airbnb is occasionally available. So anyway, I've talked a little bit more than I thought I would, but I'd be happy to take questions. Your hand up first.
So what do you define as peak season?
For the purpose of tourists, cherry blossom season, end of March, beginning of April, that's also when the beginning of the end of the Japanese fiscal season, and also the academic year ends in March and begins in April. So the whole Japan is a movement. New Year's period, Golden Week, which is the end of April, beginning of May. Fall foliage season, that's a peak, but it's a little bit easier to deal with because it's an elongated season. And there is also a holiday in August 13th, 14th, and 15th, where traditionally ancestors' souls return home, and the whole of Japan is on the move. So if you can avoid that, you're probably doing good.
So is September, October, November a good time?
Generally good time, yes. Climate is good, and unless you're hitting the real end, you're usually not hitting the real peak.
Listen, summertime, is that peak?
Summer, I would generally avoid summer if you don't have to go into summer because it's really, really hot. Yeah. And it's also expensive. Yeah. I think you had your hand up next.
Yes. So I was curious about Mount Fuji and the Shirakawa. So for Mount Fuji, is that something that you can kind of go to off the cuff, or is that the kind of thing where if you want to climb, you need to book in advance, and can you get by with without necessarily being fully fluent in Japanese?
So language is okay in going to Mount Fuji. It depends on how high up you want to go up Mount Fuji. Halfway up, you can just show up. If you want to go up to the top, Japanese government is asking everybody to spend the night in a lodge that is near the top of the mountain because there's been issues with people who try to go up and back in the same day, and there's people who's had health issues because of that. So the government is asking people not to do that. So you want to book that lodge, and that's the one hurdle. Shirakawa-go, you can pretty much just show up, although it's not a particularly easy area to get to.
And do they have like a tour guide for Shirakawa-go, or do people mostly?
You can get tours, yes. I think you were next.
What's your experience with restrictions on tattoos at the onsen? Is it more just like big city areas, or is it across Japan?
It's pretty universal in Japan, although there are onsens that don't care. It depends on the personal circumstances, but a lot of onsens will ask you to cover it up. If that's not realistic, you want to look into properties that have a private bath in the guest room that's got onsen water, and that's going to be the point of compromise unless you find one that says that we're okay. Yeah. I think you in the back. I think so.
Are most places in Japan still using only cash?
Japan is very much cash oriented, although credit card usage has gotten better. I would always carry some cash because you're going to be found. You're going to find yourself needing cash at just some point. It's just going to happen, but it's gotten better. Let's see. The lady in mask.
So you said that there's not really tipping, but you said if the real can, you tip. So how do you give them money?
A lot of people put it in like a small fruity envelope. You can put it. You can wrap it in tissue, and I don't mean the the tissue that you blow your nose with, the kind that you might use in a gift wrapping. If it comes to it, you can hand it you can just hand cash, and you'll be fine.
And then like what percentage?
So I was told a number of years ago that like a couple thousand yen is enough. And this is a fraction of what the cost of the ryokan stay would be. You might do a web search when you go to see what the rate is around, at that time. Let's see. Yes, you're in the front.
Any tips on traveling to Rabbit Island? Is it with a scale?
Oh boy. I do not believe you can stay there. Oh gosh, where is that? I do not remember the exact location, but I do not believe there's a hotel there. I think if it's where I think it is, and don't quote me on this if I'm wrong, but if it's close to like Okayama area, I want to say. So generally, what you would want to do is to find the closest major city, and stay there and travel, or you can stay a little bit further. I don't know that you can commute from Tokyo, but I don't think it's a particularly difficult place to get to. I just don't think there's lodging there.
Yeah, and it's not too crowded. It's not like a really hot thing.
As best as I know, it's not among the places that's gotten over tourism problem. Yeah. Yes.
Aside from in-hotel breakfast, do you have any recommendations for just general breakfast places?
You believe it or not, one of the places that a lot of people go to is like Denny's. Denny's in Japan have customized their menu to Japan. So parts of the menu is Japanese breakfast, and the American side of the menu, they actually have pretty pictures, and you order the food, and they actually come out looking pretty and tasting good. So this is actually a very different experience, and all the Americans I've ever taken there, before they go, they look at me funny, what's your problem? And all of them are converted at the end. But yeah, plenty of convenience stores, etc. Great places. You had your hand up for a while.
Yeah. Do you have any advice about rental cars and driving?
Don't. So Hokkaido, a lot of people do it. The space is wider. More people rely on driving in general, and you can drive at a little bit higher speed. More in common with driving in the U.S. from what I understand, and people can do it. Other parts of Japan, especially like Tokyo, Osaka, major cities, the roads are congested, and all the signs are going to be in Japanese. They're more European in road signs than American, so you have to get used to that first, and that's on top of driving on the left side of the road. There's plenty of roads in Japan where the top speed is about equivalent to 25 miles an hour. And oh yeah, of course all the signs are metric too. So I would not recommend it unless you have to. There are parts of rural Japan where you may possibly need that car. Okinawa, possibly you might need it in certain types of situations. Hokkaido is the only place that I might possibly recommend it for tourists in the normal circumstances. Does that answer your question?
That's about the answer I was expecting.
Okay. Yes.
So you said to make sure that you always have cash on hand, excepting days you're planning to do a lot of shopping and things like that. Is there an average amount you'd recommend just have on hand for food, travel expenses, anything like that, just for a day?
I would probably budget something in the bulk. Let's see. I would just have equivalent of $100 to $200 equivalent in cash and wallet. Japan's a relatively safe country. I saw a TV program recently where this 70-year-old woman in Osaka got interviewed, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I have $4,000 in cash right here." And yeah, so it's that kind of a place. So yeah, all right. They're showing the sign to wrap up. So if you have questions, I'm happy to take them offline off the stage. So come up and ask me those questions. If you didn't raise your hand, you're also welcome to come up. Thank you for your attention. I hope you get to go to Japan.